You know, I wanted to start off where we left off last time. And that was also a request, one or two requests that I received, which is a continuation about forgiveness, because that's such a big topic about forgiveness for ourselves, for others. What's it mean? What do we get from it? Why is it useful? You know, and the quote that comes to my mind of Sid's is, I think it's in The Missing Link, about forgiving. Forgiveness is for you. It's not for the other person. It doesn't mean that you forgive the act, right? You could still say, well, that was really a nasty, horrible, awful thing. But you forgive the person because you realize that if they knew better, if they saw better in that moment of time that they did something really bad or stupid, of course they wouldn't have. That's what I love about this notion. It's not a notion, it's how we operate, it's how we are designed, of innate health. We have innate health. It just gets covered up with our wacky thinking that can drive us to a really wacky outcome, behavior, speech. So that's all I wanted to say. So, what do you all think about that? How does that land for you? Any insights you've had about forgiveness, Pallavi?
I didn't watch the recording yet of your last session about forgiveness, so I'm sorry if I say something that has already been said or whatever, like I'm not up to date. But I had one really big insight for me sometime last year, and it was that forgiveness, from what I can see, is like an all or nothing thing. Like I can either see the innocence in everything, and that would mean to forgive everything, or I will always let it be up to my personal mind, my personal judgment, and say, okay, I forgive this, but not that. And I could just see that there's no truth in that. So it has to be like everything. And that doesn't mean that I can always feel that or see that instantly, but I kind of know that the truth lies there for me. That when there is such thing as psychological innocence, and what Laurie just said, that if we would all act differently if we knew better, this has always been to this is always the truth, like the where I want to go to or where I want to look. And for me, this was very helpful to see this, because when I get lost in judging someone, it's kind of, it helps me to see that I'm just getting caught up in my thinking. Even if I can't see it right now, a part of me knows that it can't be true, because I can't be the one judging, who is innocent and who not. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. So, yeah.
I love that, Pallavi. Yeah, that it's really universal. When we're in a high enough state of mind, when our consciousness is high enough, in that moment, it could drop the next moment, but the moment that our consciousness is high enough that we see forgiveness, like people just were lost. I mean, even the insurgents at our Capitol, how do you they have to go to trial. People who break laws have to be tried just because you realize, wow, they didn't know better than that. That's mind-boggling, but it's true. If they knew better, they would not have done what they did. I mean, you know what it reminds me of? Bill Pettit story about interviewing the fellow who shot his principal at school. And he was behind bars in a jail, and Bill had to go into that's how I recall the story, that he had to go into the prison. Some of you must have heard the story, I think. And the fellow said to him, as he was walking down the hallway with the pistol in his hand, he had a quiet voice say, you don't have to do this. You don't have to go through with this. There's the door, stage left, get the heck out of here. But he didn't pay attention. And he said to Bill, if I knew to pay attention to that quiet voice of wisdom, I would not be in this predicament. Was it wrong? Does he go to jail and worse? Yeah. It's heartbreaking, isn't it, that people can just ruin their lives in an instant of a wrong decision because they didn't know better. Alan was first.
Yeah.
You go, Ellen, and then back to Pallavi.
I was thinking about this. We always talk about forgiveness as if it's something I need to do inside myself to be more in alignment with the universe or whatever. But I think what's true too is that if we can act in ways that make it easier for other people to forgive us, I mean, I think that's just the other side of the coin. So if I can act in which is why an apology is a heartfelt apology is so important, because it helps other people forgive us when we've done something awful. I know I've been devastated a couple times in my life, and the heartfelt apology fixes it. It fixes it. Just like all of a sudden, it's okay again. And so forgiveness has two sides, I think. Having the sensitivity to act in a way that helps other people,
Yeah.
as well as helping yourself. So anyway.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. That is so true. And sometimes it takes a while for somebody to apologize because they're still stuck, entrenched in their ego, in their personal thinking and their self-righteousness. And that too is innocence when we're stuck in our ego. Who wouldn't jump out of that if they realized it? You get caught up. Everybody does. And sometimes it's days, weeks, months where somebody wakes up and realizes, in the middle of a shower or driving down the highway, wow, that was really bad what I did. And you know what? That's a blessing, right? When that hits a person, like they've been cornered in their ego and their personal thinking for I don't know how many hours, days, weeks, whatever, and all of a sudden they wake up, that's grace, right? I mean, how does that happen when a person wakes up and realizes that they were wrong? You can't really apologize, that heartfelt apology, until you recognize that was so wrong. That was like the stupidest thing I ever did. And at that moment, you can't ever do that again because you've realized how crazy that was. Does anybody relate to this? I think you were going to say something else, Pallavi.
Yeah, I love what Ellen said about the heartfelt apology. And I listened to some kind of webinar, I think with George Pruensky maybe, and it was about a couple. And the guy wasn't able to forgive his wife or partner for cheating on him. And he said, like, she didn't really feel remorse. But the thing was, like, she was feeling very bad for what she did, but she hadn't forgiven herself. And I was just thinking about, like, if maybe a really heartfelt apology needs you to forgive yourself first, like to really see that you did something really stupid, but then forgive yourself so that you can open up again to the other person. Because if you stay in this place of judging yourself, you can apologize, but you won't be, in this love again. I don't know. I never thought about it before this way. I just heard it on the webinar and I thought it was very interesting to think about that aspect too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's wonderful. Thanks for saying
One of
that.
the things I've been thinking about is that state of forgiveness. It's if you're in that state in a kind of preemptive way, so that it prevents the faux pas, if you want to call it, whatever it is. So it's a state of mind that is taking care of you, that it's like, I like the term autopilot, like we're wired to run that way if we allow it to run that way and not get distracted by our thoughts. And coming from that space of a sort of a preemptive state of forgiveness, like it actually prevents things from happening that you need to forgive. You know what I mean? Like you're operating from a state of mind that is protecting you and others from any don't quite know what the word is, but any ill feelings or any act that might give need to forgiving somebody or yourself. I mean, like, thinking thoughts that beat yourself up is, I mean, yes, we need to forgive ourselves for that.
When Laurie, when you were just talking before about people like doing stuff like shooting somebody and how they can ruin their lives in one moment by listening to their thinking, I was just thinking about all the guys here from Jacqueline Hollows, like the Prison Project, and I like to listen to them so much, and I just thought this is also such a beauty in it that it's possible at any point. Like no matter what happened or no matter what went wrong in your past, that there's still this possibility of finding peace and starting new. And this yeah, I mean, this is part of this whole of the beauty of forgiveness, that there's in the end there's nothing that's unforgivable. So this makes it very I don't know, it's kind of scary sometimes for the mind to think about this, but it's also the beauty in it, I think.
Mm, mm. Like Shanann's story, right? He actually says that it was actually his understanding of the three principles when he ran into Sid and the three principles that he was able to forgive himself. He didn't change. He changed before he ran into, because he had this amazing defining moment of his house being shot up with his parents having dinner inside. Nobody was harmed, but that really shook him out of his gang lifestyle. But then he still had a lot of trauma attached to that, like PTSD, couldn't sleep, a lot of the symptoms of PTSD, until he ran across it in the three principles and he was able to forgive himself. And the PTSD symptoms literally disappeared. Isn't that interesting? I mean, that's what an insight can do to somebody. Alan.
This is funny. When you were talking, I remembered a dream I used to have when I was a little kid. And when I was a little kid, I used to be stuck in this nightmare in the middle of the road out in front of our house. And a car would be coming down the road, getting closer and closer and closer. And I would wake up and just be really scared. And then one night, I don't know why it occurred to me, but I said, okay, go ahead, hit me. I don't give a rip. And I let the car hit me. I never had that dream again. It was taken care of. And forgiving feels like that little kid in the road sometimes, where it takes courage to forgive. It takes wisdom, and it also takes courage. It strikes me, it's like a mix of the two. Wisdom will take care of it, right? don't need as much courage if you got a lot of wisdom. If you don't have any wisdom, it takes a lot of courage. So it just struck me as forgiveness struck me as a courageous thing to do, as well as a wise thing. So
Oh man, I love that. Love that, right? It does, doesn't it? Because we can do so much ego thinking, conditioned thinking, like, well, how am I guaranteed that you won't do this again to me? That is so prevalent of, right? The ego thinking that goes on. And you have to, or not you have to, but that is forgivable also. If somebody is stuck in their ego and they're hanging on for dear life and so resistant because they have so many thoughts about how am I guaranteed, how can I trust that this won't happen again? So I like that it takes courage to say, okay, I'm diving into unconditional love where, if you wrong me again, that's shame on you. There was a saying, wasn't there, that if you wrong me again, something on you and shame on me, and that is incorrect. It is not shame on the person who realized that, like Alan was saying, just trust that the universe has your back. And we have a lot of sayings in our culture that are not accurate. When you look at it from a three principles perspective, they're absolutely not accurate because it doesn't consider the spiritual essence of all of us. Pallavi, I saw your hand up.
Sorry, I'm very talkative today.
Good, yeah, that's great. Me too, so.
I just thought when you said that we almost tend to feel vulnerable when we forgive, like it makes it more likely that it happens again. And I think this is like one of the biggest misunderstandings of the mind, that it somehow keeps us safe to hold on to anger or judgment or resistance or whatever. And I can notice it with my own issues, with my body and pain or something, that I really get scared when I let go of these fighting against the pain or whatever, it feels like this fighting and resisting keeps me safe. And I often see I feel like it's one of the biggest misunderstandings, what keeps us being caught up in the mind, because it somehow seems to be valuable to keep going there and going on with this thing. And I think it's very interesting for me, it's very interesting to see that it doesn't do anything good for me, it basically does the opposite, but it's weird. It's like this, maybe it's this conditioning we all have, like be careful that nothing happens to you, or I don't know where it's coming from, but yeah,
It's innocent.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that it's such a common misunderstanding that people have. And it's innocent. Because people don't realize that it's a misunderstanding of how we work. Who else? Anything else, or should we go on to another? Have we exhausted the forgiveness topic?
I'd just like to say that I saw something deeper when you first talked about separating the act from the person. It's been quite personal to me, to do with a family member, where I've actually found it quite difficult to do that. But just when you spoke about it, I really saw something that, by having that separation between the person and the act, it just softens and opens up a whole new way of going deeper. And how much richer that experience is for seeing that that separation, you know, and that innocence, you know, as you say, you know, if they could do something different, then they would. So thank you for that, because something just clicked in me. So thank you.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool how that happened? Yeah. That you see something you hadn't seen a minute ago. That's so cool. You know,
Yeah,
that's
it's
what
sort of,
insight
you know,
is.
sometimes we can see things from an intellectual perspective, but
Yeah.
we don't always get it when there's an emotional connection, you know. But
Yeah.
that was lovely, because I really felt it as well as saw it.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Richard, you said something just the other day about insight. And I can't bring it to mind yet, but I wrote it down on my other computer to use as an Instagram post. Do you remember what it was? Because I think it's relative.
Was that about the nature of what you need to know when you need to know?
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
I mean, that's accessing that innate knowledge and wisdom that we do have, is that, you know, you don't always know ahead of time what's coming, but insights deliver what you need to know when you need to know. And it allows for evolution too, which is kind of cool. And,
I love that. Insights deliver what you need to know when you need to know it. I mean, how perfectly we're designed. You know, it's like we're part of nature. I look at nature like these geographic, is that what it's called? National Geographic, you know, things like that. And, you know, this animal eats that animal, which eats that animal. And this animal swims upstream because of this reason. And, you know, it's like, who designed this? How did this get designed like this? Mind boggling. And we're part of that. We're part of that design that there is no way we could ever figure out with the intellect. It's so far beyond our intellect. And yet we fall back on our intellect so much in life, trying to figure things out and get to the bottom of it and all of that stuff. So what's up next? Where do you want to go next? I see your wheels turning, Greg. What's going
Just like
on?
awkward silence. That's it.
You what?
No, I was just saying like awkward silence. That was it. It was just funny. There was like an awkward silence. That was it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Alan.
Well, the thought I had was I was listening to one of Sid's old tape where he was talking about the difference between listening to him and coming away with some thoughts and new ideas and new concepts and ways to think about your life. The difference between that and having a realization, of listening to Sid and having a realization. And I've been thinking about realizations lately, and you know, I'm afraid I can only count the number of realizations I have had on one hand. You know, I don't know, but you know, we have lots of ideas, lots of good thoughts, lots of good feelings. And it seems like we have very few realizations, and sometimes they're powerful and sometimes they're not. But there's a difference in quality between realizing, for example, that I'm okay and that I'm safe, and that the world is a big thing, and I'm much a part of it as anything else, and there is an intelligence that's guiding me. You know, having that realization is different than the idea of all those things. Does that make sense? And I'd love to hear I'd love to hear what you've realized. It's a yeah. I'd love to hear what you've realized.
Yeah, I like that too. We've heard Richard's big realization of being like, wow, I'm okay. You've heard my big realization, which was very similar, that I'm not the ruler of my life. It's not all up to me, which is, you know, a lot like Richard's, I'm okay. And you had that realization too, Ellen, right? That everything's okay, even though it's not the way we would choose. Yeah. So what other realizations have just hit you like, whoa?
I guess for me, Laurie, like the I'm okay insight that I had was, it was so grounded, and it just put me at ease with who I was, you know, with an understanding of where that thought was coming from, and the security to move forward, to experience life in a much more secure state of mind. I mean, like, for those of you that don't know, I used to count to 10 before I'd make phone calls, and if frequently I'd never get to 10, so I'd never make the call. But after I had that insight, I simply stopped counting and just relaxed into the confidence of you know, what that state brought. So that was very cool, and it wasn't like wow or anything like that. It was just so ordinary, peaceful, solid, sort of simple understanding that came with the realization that I'm okay.
Yeah, it's very cool. The ramifications, something, you know, big realization, a big insight has, you know, is this ripple effect. Like all of a sudden, you're just not counting to 10. Doesn't make sense to you anymore. You're automatically confident in whatever the moment brings, as long as you're in a nice state of mind. That's the ticket, isn't it? That was a big aha for me. The state of mind. That's the thing I have to look out for. It's not the oncoming traffic. It's not, you know, what people are dishing out to me. It's my own state of mind. That's the only thing I have some control over, at least knowing enough to button up if my state of mind is not in a good place. That in itself is really helpful to be aware of. Like tabling the discussion, right? Okay, I'm not in a place for this. I got to clear my head. Let's come back and have another meeting of the minds once my head is clear. Pallavi, yeah.
I think something that really had a great impact for me was seeing, like really seeing that I can only find truth inside of me. Like I never really understood before. I had a feeling before. I mean, I heard all kinds of teachers say, look within, no? The usual stuff, but it at some point I had an experience of like when you really feel and see something, even though you've heard it like 1,000 times before, and somehow it became very clear to me how it can only come like for my own insight. And I just see that this wasn't like such a big moment or something, but I see the change it made in my life because I just stopped searching. Like I love being in groups like this and listening to people and getting inspired, but I don't have this idea that there's something outside of there and I just need to find it and then I'm good, you know, like some kind of theory or whatever. And I love that because I'm totally uninterested in all the stuff people are sending me about new therapies, diets or whatever. I just have no motivation at all to look at anything. And this is a nice change for me because with the chronic pain thing, you tend to look everywhere. And yeah, I just noticed this again and again, that I can see the change it makes in my life and in my behavior, actually.
Oh, wow, that's so great. I love that too, right? That the place to trust is the wisdom inside of us. Even if somebody else is talking from their wisdom, it's not going to impact us unless it's our wisdom. Does that make sense?
And if I don't know in the moment, then I don't know, and that's fine. And I can relax into that. And really quite often when I have like something I'm busy with and I notice it and I relax into the not knowing, and then I rest or listen to it or whatever, something new might come up, like not like the super big insight, but I often see something new, which is like my next thing to see. And it's lovely to relax and trust into that more than before, at least.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so good. How about
Well,
the rest of you? Oh, Becky.
I was going to say, when I first came across the principles, I hadn't realized what an impact it had on me, but I woke up the next morning and my mind was really still. There was no chatter. And I had this realization that before in my life, I'd seen myself as a little boat bobbing on the water, and it was continually moving about. And then, excuse the expression, when the shit hit the fan, it felt like I had to get to the shore, you know, that I wasn't safe in case unless I got that boat on dry land. And I saw this in my mind's eye. And then right on the back of that, I saw myself as this massive tanker. And it was so big, I couldn't even see the sea. And then on the back of that, I saw that actually it wasn't just me that was like this big tanker, we all were. And it was like, oh, wow. I mean, and the feeling that came with that immense peace and that immense solidarity. It felt so incredibly spiritual, but so expansive and so deep and profound that feeling has never really left me, of, you know, just how incredible, you know, that peace of mind and inner knowing that we have. But, you know, the three principles, I think, just really connects with that for me. And I've never forgotten that feeling. So, you know, sometimes in the moment, I just bring myself back to that feeling and connect with that tanker. And, you know, it just feels such a powerful image for me.
Wow, that's amazing that image came to you like that. That's
Yeah.
really something, huh?
I don't often have a quiet mind in the mornings either. So to wake up and have nothing on my mind and then see that was for me quite a miracle as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Sure is. Yeah. Like a miracle to get that. There are miracles here all the time. We don't always notice them, right? Yeah, it's so interesting how our consciousness shifts throughout the day, throughout the years. There are these shifts in consciousness. It's really fascinating. Sometimes I'm just, a human doing grocery shopping. Can't wait to get out of the grocery store so I can cook dinner, or, thinking 6 hours ahead of me. And sometimes I'm walking in nature, which, by the way, Alan, you brought this up last week about being in nature. And I really noticed that. I got out for a walk. It hadn't even occurred to me to go back to my park after this beautiful snowfall we had. We had the second snowfall last night, but after the first one, it had gotten warm enough that I could get out there and walk my park, my typical park. So I got out there and it was just, heaven, heaven on earth. And something came to me that I know was piggybacking off of what Alan said about being in nature and how the mind gets so quiet. Of course, I don't recall it now, but it was so cool to, like, I think I had a deeper moment as a result of hearing in my brain what Alan had said a few days earlier, if that makes sense. It just was a catalyst. Another reason that it's cool to get together like this, we impact one another. Alan.
I was thinking about this. So I had a client a long time ago that just really hated nature, hated bugs, hated snakes, hated animals, hated trees. And wow, separate realities. And there's another example of thought and consciousness creating a truth.
Yeah.
And for most of us, we're lucky we enjoy nature and feel the connection. But for this person, no way. So we're all different.
Isn't that interesting? I'd be so curious to know what the thinking was that led the foundation for that belief, for that thinking. It's hard to imagine, isn't it, that somebody would hate nature unless they had a really bad experience that scared them about it. Who knows? Yeah. Fascinating. The minds of other people, right? But it reminds me, I had a client sort of similar. We were walking out of my office years ago, and I commented about, oh, I love fall. Look at the colors. You know what she said to me? I hate fall. It reminds me of winter coming. It reminds me of death. Isn't that wild? What a great example of how people's thinking creates this block to a beautiful experience. Alan.
I know we all have examples like this, but when I lived in Eugene, I was walking down the street on a beautiful, beautiful sunny Eugene day. It was about 70 degrees. I was walking with a blind man, and I told him, I said, it's a beautiful day. It's sunny, it's warm. And he said, well, imagine walking in a dark basement in front of a boiler. That's what this is like to me. And I thought right then, wow, we all really live in entirely different worlds.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, I'm so grateful for my eyesight. It's not great, but it's better than my hearing. So grateful. Ah, ah. What are your takes when we go silent, when we have a moment of silence? What's that like for all of you? Greg.
I know this kind of happened earlier, But I don't know why. Whenever there's like a silence, I can't help but laughing, and I'm not sure why that is. It's like I don't know why.
Well, it's fun seeing you laughing. You did use the word awkward, right? Does it feel awkward to you guys? No. What's it feel like to you? Or Libby, what's it feel like to you?
I just am thinking about what people are saying. So you're just talking about nature and your perspective and being grateful. And so you could go outside and think, oh, it's cold, it's, you know, it's wet, it's damp, it's buggy. Or you could think, oh, the sun's shining, you know, the sun is reflecting off the snow, which is beautiful. Or, you know, it's just, it's all in perspective, I guess. And, you know, being grateful for, and I think with this past year with COVID, kind of forced you to think that, you know, like now I enjoy going for a walk, and if it's cold, it's kind of a bummer because, you know, but I still just try to bundle up and go outside and get that, you know, a change of pace or fresh air, or, you know, try to look at things positively and just be grateful for the fact that we could do that since we can't, you know, do other things. So. But the awkward silence, I'm just kind of thinking internally about what's being said and how does that resonate with me, you know? So.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. You know what I've loved about COVID? I have to tell you, I mean, a lot. I obviously don't love the fact that people are dying in hospitals on ventilators, but what I realized is how adaptable we are. You know, I mean, just seeing how I have adapted, it's really quite amazing how, you know, that resiliency factor that's built into us. If somebody told me that I would be living the way I've lived the past almost year now, March, right? So that would make it 10 months. 10 months. I would say, no way. No, they'd be locking me up in the psych hospital, Institute of Living, the local psychiatric hospital here. But there's like a lot that I can't come up with complaints. I mean, even like I live alone and people have this big deal in their mind about not having touch. Like human touch is such a big deal to them. They'll cite the medical or biological needs of touch. You know, like there was this study with the iron armature monkey, and the monkeys would go into the cage and they'd always go for the armature with the soft on it, and they'd cuddle up with that. Those are monkeys. I'm not a monkey. And you know what? It's not been the end of the world that I have not touched or been touched by one human. I mean, I do go for a massage, I have to admit, once every 3 weeks. Would it be a bigger effect if I didn't? I don't know, maybe. I do look forward to my massages, but I don't think I would be like, you know, a crazy person. Like a lot of people have this idea that they're going to go insane without getting human touch. Alan.
So I was thinking about this. So Dr. John Enright, who was one of the people that initially introduced SID way back when. Richard, you might be more clear on this than I am, but anyway, he used to train with George Pransky a lot. So as trainers, we were in these trainings. One of the things John used to say was that, well, Sid says that life is a contact sport. And the way John looked at it, he said, well, you know those cafeterias where you go in and there's a big pile of plates and you pull the plate off, and darn if there isn't another plate right under that one. and you pull a plate off. Said that's what life is like. Life is like that pile of cafeteria plates when it comes to problems and issues and things that go on. And you know, as you were talking, Laura, I was thinking, oh my God, it's even like COVID-19 strain 1, COVID-19 strain 2. They're like those. They are in essence the same as those cafeteria plates. As horrific as they are, from that point of view, just another cafeteria plate. And I don't want to trivialize it at all. But anyway, that metaphor occurred to me.
Yeah, love it. I had heard that, I think George used that. What I remember is, and maybe it's because of the cafeterias I had been in, you know, you pull out a tray and then the next tray pops up in its place. And so George must have borrowed that from John Enright. Yeah, they were partners in a practice in California. And John went out to Salt Spring, and he didn't want to give up his booming practice. This is how I heard it or recall it. And so he sent George, go find out what this guy Sid Banks is talking about. But John was perfectly happy to just keep going with his booming practice, making a lot of money, I guess. I wonder if John is mentioned in, you know, if he's one of the characters in The Enlightened Gardener. Richard might know. Do you know any of those characters? I mean, I could like name them off. Sure, there's George, there's Roger Mills, there's Kim Kadu. I don't know.
Well, we all play roles that it's interesting how you associate yourself with writings, because like Second Chance, for example, because the lead character's name was Richard. There would be times that I would go, well, is Sid trying to tell me something here? And, you know, it's just that you become self-conscious, I guess would be the word, of, you know, what is going on in your life and what the lessons are that are being given in the writing. And I think, you know, there's something to be learned, you know, by everyone in those books. What amazes me is that capacity of feeling can actually come off the written word and transform you. Like it makes more sense to me like audio as opposed to say written, but I've experienced that same sensation where you're emailing somebody and you're communicating the feeling through email. And like it blew me away in '95. I had a relationship with a fellow from Hewlett Packard, and I was amazed how rich the dialogue was. And it wasn't just the words, there was something behind the words that was making the exchange rich and meaningful. And it moved very quickly from a point of view of not outcomes, but just the exchange for each other. Like we both got a lot out of it. And it must have been amazing when Sid was like receiving the writings and to be putting them down on bits and pieces of paper and coming up with the overall story that, you know, like magical way of helping people just through writing.
Yeah, that really blows me away. I mean, how did Sid write like that with a ninth grade education? Yeah, blows me away.